When it's cold outside, it is great to warm up to a nice, hot, comfort food meal. I've got a lot of comments recently like, oh man, I didn't know you had a recipe for that. And to that I say, oh man, I've got one for you. So today, if you got a little bit of time, I want to show you 10 of my favorite comfort food recipes that you may have never seen. And I do apologize, the video quality may not be as good as it is now. It ain't great now, but it definitely wasn't great in some of these. But I'm going to tell you, these recipes are absolutely awesome. So settle in with a nice cup of something hot, and I'll show you my 10 favorite comfort food meals. Stick around. Now right off the bat, y'all might want to debate about this, that meatballs are not a comfort food. And to that I would say, I'm right and you're wrong. I mean, there's nothing else to say. Anyway, this is my favorite meatball recipe. I think you'll love it. I'm going to share a recipe with you from one of the hardest restaurants to get in the whole United States. Rayo's restaurant in New York City. I'm going to be making their spaghetti and meatballs, but I'm going to make it keto. I'm going to make it healthy, and I'm going to make it delicious, and I'm going to show you how to do it right after this. Now, before I show you this recipe, I want to tell you a little bit of the history behind Rayo's. Everybody knows that it's one of the best sauces that you can get as far as being low carb and keto friendly. They don't use any additional sugars. They use the finest ingredients, and they use good olive oil. But their tradition goes way, way back. You can buy Rayo's sauces in the store, but you might not know anything about the restaurant. They've been in business in New York City since 1896, and they're known for their authentic Southern Italian food, the amount of celebrities that go there, and the fact that you can't get in, because the tables there are all owned by regulars. Some of the tables have been owned by the same families for generations, and nobody is going to give up their table. To get a table there, you need to know one of the table owners, and even if you do, there's no guarantee you'll be able to get the table. If you are lucky enough to get in, you're going to pay somewhere between $150 and $200 a person for a meal. So if you're like me and you can't get a table, you don't want to pay $150 or $200 to eat some spaghetti and meatballs, and if you're following a keto diet, you will not have to miss out on Rayo's famous spaghetti and meatballs. I'm going to show you how to make it and make it keto. If you have a table at Rayo's and you can get me in, please, by all means. If not, I have the recipe. I made it keto. I made it delicious. So let's get cooking. Okay, so here are the ingredients you're going to need for these meatballs. You're going to need 1 pound of ground beef. You're going to need 1 pound of meatloaf mix. So this is ground veal, pork, and beef together. This just gives it some great flavor. You're going to need 2 large eggs at room temperature. And if you buy local eggs, you can keep them at room temperature instead of having to refrigerate them. You're going to need Parmigiano Reggiano cheese. You can substitute Parmesan if you have to, but in order to make this the best recipe possible, you need this Parmigiano Reggiano. You're going to need some parsley, and normally I'll take parsley out of my garden and chop it up, but I don't have any right now, so I'm going to use this dried that I get at Sam's. You're going to need some minced garlic, and of course you can mince your own, but this is super convenient, just like it says right there on the label, convenient squeeze bottle. So that's what I like to do because it's easy, it's already done, and I don't have to prepare another ingredient. It's done for me. Then you're going to need 2 cups of pork panko or pork breadcrumbs, and I'll link the video that I did about how to make these down below so you can watch that. That's what turns this into a keto recipe. Instead of using breadcrumbs, we're going to use this, and it turns out, I believe, even better. You get more flavor there. You're going to need some lukewarm water, and I start with about 4 cups, but normally I only put in about 2.5 cups of this water, and I'll show you what that's for in a little bit. Then you need a good olive oil, and this is Fabulosa extra virgin olive oil. You definitely want to use extra virgin. This is from a place in South Carolina on the coast in Beaufort called All of the Above. but just use the best extra virgin olive oil you can get your hands on. It really makes a difference in this recipe. So I'm going to measure out all these ingredients, and then I'll show you how to put it together in just a minute. So what we're going to do now is put the meat in the bowl. I'm going to add in the garlic. Now I went a little overboard with the garlic, but I love garlic. So if you don't love garlic, put less in. I love garlic. I'm going to put more in. I'm going to go in with the parsley. And I'll put this recipe down below so you don't have to worry about trying to keep up with this and write it down. I'll put it in there for you. I beat these 2 eggs. I'm going to put those in there. And I'm going to put in cheese. Now the only way to do this is to go in with your hands and get it all together. I'm going to put some salt and pepper in this also, just to give it a little extra seasoning before I put the pork breadcrumbs in there. And you can buy the pork breadcrumbs, but if you want to save a lot of money, I'm going to put my pork breadcrumb video in the description so that you can make these at home and save a lot of money. But if you're in a hurry, just buy the ones that are in the store. It's fine. The regular breadcrumbs that are normally in Rayo's meatballs are what give it all the carbs. So you don't want that. This actually tastes better and you don't have all the carbs. So I'm going to wash my hands real quick. I'm going to pour in the breadcrumbs. I'll be right back. Okay. So I washed my hands. I'm going to pour in these pork breadcrumbs. And just make sure there's no big chunks in there. It looked like there were, but sometimes when you process them in the Ninja, they stick together and look like big chunks when there's actually no chunks. So you just want to check that out and make sure, because it won't come out right if you do that. I'm just going to go in. This is the Himalayan pink salt. You can use this or the Redmond salt. You can do a good, generous portion of this. You don't have to be scared of salt. It's going to make it taste good. And then some fresh ground pepper. So we'll season that pretty well. And I'm going to go back in, combine this together one more time. So when this is combined, I'll come back and I'll show you the next step. So this is what it looks like when it's all combined together. And now we're going to do something that sounds a little weird, but trust me, this is what makes the meatballs. So we're going to take this lukewarm water. I'm going to pour in just a little bit at a time, maybe a cup. And I'm going to work this in until it has a good bit of moisture in there. So the pork panko is going to absorb some of this moisture. The meat's going to absorb some of the moisture. And you want it to be pretty wet. It needs a little more than that. So I'm going to pour in a little more. So at this point I'm about a cup and a half of water in here. I'm going to keep working it in. This is the important part. If you miss this, you miss the whole recipe. So this is how it looks right now. It needs a little bit more. So we're about 2 cups in right now. I'm going to mix this together. And you almost want to get it to the point where it does not absorb any more water. So we are about to that point. So I don't know if you can see how this looks, but it will barely form the meatball. So if you can see that, this is kind of the consistency that you want with this. And I'm going to let it sit for a minute or two, kind of absorb all the water in. So that was about a cup and a half to 2 cups of water that I put in there. We'll let it sit there and we're going to make these meatballs. Okay, so what we're going to do is take a little of this. I like to make them about that size. So a little bigger than a golf ball, and I just roll them around just like that. And I'll put it on the plate. So about that much. Just roll it around like that. Put it on the plate. Now these are some pretty big meatballs. If you like them smaller, hey, make them smaller. So I'm going to finish rolling these, and I'll be right back to show you what the next step is. Okay, so this made 21 meatballs, and like I said, I like mine a little bit bigger, so if you want a smaller meatball, maybe shoot for 28. But we're going to go over to the stove now, and I'll show you what to do next. Alright, so we're going to take our cup of olive oil and just pour it into a saute pan. I'm going to turn it up to medium heat, and basically what we're going to do is just brown the outside of these. I've got my marinara sauce, and I'll have a video for this coming soon, but you can use your favorite pasta sauce. I would recommend Rayo's because it's the lowest in carbs out there and it's delicious, and these are Rayo's copycat meatballs, so it's going to go perfectly with it. But we're going to put this on the stove. We're going to finish cooking these meatballs in the sauce, but first we're going to brown them in this olive oil. So as soon as this comes up to temperature, I'll throw them in there and I'll show you what it looks like. So I'm going to start putting these meatballs in. This olive oil is going pretty good. Don't be scared of frying anything in olive oil. I know you've always heard that you can't fry anything in olive oil, but olive oil is so full of antioxidants. It's not going to oxidize. It's not going to burn. In Greece and all the Mediterranean countries, this is what they use. But I'm going to put about that many in. You don't want to crowd the pan. So I actually probably crowded a little too much. I should have put one less in. But hey, it happens. So I'm going to let these fry up just a little bit, and I'm going to turn them. You want to let them sit for at least 2 to 3 minutes. Get a good crust on the outside before you turn them over. And I'll kind of just shake the pan once that happens. But just leave them just like this for a little bit. Don't disturb the pan. Don't be going in and trying to roll them around and all that. Just let them sit for a little bit. They're all good. And then a couple, 3 minutes, we'll check one out. Make sure it's got a good crust on it. We'll flip them over, and then we'll do the rest of them. Okay, so if you can see these, they're cooked about halfway around. So I'm going to check one. And if it sticks, it's probably not ready. So that did not stick. Whoa, a lot of steam there. So if you can see that, that's how it should look. It could be a little more brown, so I'm going to leave them in there for just a minute longer and cook the other side. The most important thing that you want to check for to know that they're ready is if they don't stick. So you have to give them a little. That one's sticking, so that's not ready. Check that one. Not quite ready yet. So we'll leave them in there another minute or so, and we'll flip them over. Alright, so as you can see, you can fry things in olive oil. There's no fire. Smells great. And it's cooking perfectly. So once both sides are brown, we're going to check that. That's almost there. Once both sides are brown, we're going to go ahead and put it into this sauce, which I have heating up on low. It's going to cook in that sauce for 15 minutes, and then they're ready to go. So these meatballs are all done, so we're just going to take them out of here. I'm going to transfer them into the sauce, and they're going to cook for 15 minutes, and I'll show you what it looks like when it's done. In the meantime, I'm going to start the water boiling for our egg life noodle pasta. And I'll be right back. Alright, so the meatballs are in the sauce, and as you can see, I kind of ripped one of them apart, but hey, when you really cook, stuff like that's going to happen. I guarantee you it's still going to be delicious, and I guarantee you I'm also going to eat it ball shape or not. So yeah, this is just down on a little low simmer. I popped all the meatballs down inside that sauce. So they're just getting real happy in their little bed of sauce, and it'll be ready in about 15 minutes. So this is what we're going to use for the pasta. These are the Egg Life original egg white wraps. So 25 calories, 5 grams of protein, no carbs. Let me show you how to make these. All right, so you're just going to take these a few at a time and roll them up just like that. And then depending on what kind of pasta you want, if you want some fettuccine, cut them about that much. I'm doing a spaghetti, so I'm going to make them real thin. So basically we're just going to go through them like this. And when I get done, I'll show you what it looks like. All right, if you'll get real crazy, try to roll up the whole stack like a big burrito and then go in like this. It works. It's easier if you only use a few, but I like the challenge, so I'm going to go in. Oh, there's a little too thick. More like fettuccine, but it's all good. It's going to taste great in the end, so I'm going to finish these. And we've got some perfect carb-free pasta. Now what I'm going to do is I've got a pot with some water in it. I'm going to take a little bit of olive oil, throw that in there, and I'm going to take a little bit of Redmond's real salt, and sprinkle a little of that in there too. So we'll season that water pretty good to make these Egg Life spaghetti noodles even more flavorful. And I'm going to go in and separate them a little bit so they don't stick together in the water, and I'll be right back. Okay, so now the water is boiling, so we're going to throw in these Egg Life spaghetti noodles, and we're only going to leave them in for about a minute. All you want to do is heat them through because they're already cooked. You just want to get them up to temperature, and then we'll drain them. If you like a little bit different texture, you can leave them in for as much as 2 minutes, but you don't want to go past that. Alright, so we're just going to dump these in here to strain them, and then we'll put this together. Alright, so the egg noodles are ready. We're just going to top it with a couple meatballs and some of my good marinara sauce. Post the video on how to make this marinara sauce soon. And then the way I'm going to finish this, it's a little fresh basil from the garden and a little bit of this shaved Parmigiano Reggiano. Just like that. I hope y'all enjoy it. So there you have it. The Rayo's meatballs, the spaghetti, and the marinara sauce. Now we can definitely all agree that chili is a great comfort food. And this is my version of chili. It's got some unexpected ingredients in it, and it's absolutely delicious. It would almost be carnivore if carnivores would just eat tomatoes. I mean, couldn't you do it every once in a while? Anyway, y'all take a look at this chili. Today I'm going to make a recipe that I've been waiting to make for a long time. I've had to wait until it gets a little chilly outside, and it's finally chilly outside. Speaking of chili, that's what I'm making today. My world famous keto chili. Hey, this is Victor with your Best Body Blueprint, and welcome back to my channel. My chili recipe has got a lot of ingredients that you would expect to find in chili. There's a lot of ingredients you would not expect to find in chili. I'm really excited to bring this one to you. I think you're going to love it. And make sure you watch this video till the end, because I'm going to throw a couple of hints in about what my next video is going to be. There are 0 recipes on the entire internet for what I'm going to make. Make sure you check this out all the way to the end. We'll go ahead and get into this. I'll show you all the ingredients you're going to need to make this world famous keto chili. Is it world famous? It's world famous in my world, and I hope it will be in yours too. Y'all enjoy this. Let's get right into it. The first thing I want to show you is all the meats that you're going to need for this world famous keto chili. You're going to need some bacon. This is the double thick butcher's cut from Smithfield. Use your favorite bacon. You're going to need some regular ground beef, some 80/20. You're also going to need a leaner cut of beef, like this ground sirloin right here. This is a 90/10. It's just for a different flavor. You're going to need some sweet Italian sausage, or use your favorite kind of sausage. I think the sweet is really good. I'm going to be adding some heat, so I don't use the spicy in this. You're going to need a pork chop, and you want some thin pork chops. This one's a little thicker, and so I'm going to cut that in half and cube it up for this recipe. And then my secret ingredient here are these beef little smokies. Now these last two ingredients may sound a little odd, something that you don't find every day in chili, but I promise you, when you try it like this, you won't want to go back to any other way. Now what I'm going to do is get the Dutch oven on the stove, and I'm also going to do another pan. Now you can cook your bacon in here, but of course, I cook my bacon the easiest way that I can cook it, which is in this microwave bacon cooker. Now if you don't have one of these, why not? It's like 10 bucks, and it is literally the easiest way that you can cook bacon. So I'll put a link to it down below if you don't have one. But I'm going to start this first while I'm getting all my other ingredients together and get this bacon cooked. We're going to save the bacon grease. Normally I put it in my bacon grease container, but today I'm going to pour it right in that pan that we got on the stove because we're going to use that in the chili. Now let's get together the vegetables we're going to need. The first thing is a can of crushed tomatoes. That's 28 ounces of crushed tomatoes. You're going to need a can of tomato sauce. This is 15 ounces. I get this at Walmart. You're going to need Rotel, and I like this fire roasted diced tomato. This is just a regular 10-ounce can. You're going to need some stewed tomatoes. Again, this is Walmart special, 14.5 ounce can. You're going to need either of these jalapeno slices or the diced pickled jalapenos. I had this on hand, so I'm just going to dice it up myself. You're going to need the hugest Vidalia onion you can find, or whatever sweet onion you have available to you. I just like the sweet onion for a little bit more flavor. You're going to need a bag of these mini sweet peppers. And then my recipe calls for the beef better than bouillon, but I had this seasoned vegetable one on hand, so I'm going to use it. I'm just going to put a little bit of this bone broth concentrate in there to up that beefy flavor. Now I know a lot of my recipes are easy. This one's a little more involved, but I promise you that when you try this, it's going to be worth it. It makes a huge batch so you can freeze some, or hey, if you're really hungry, just go ahead and eat the whole thing. But if you do, please leave me a comment, because I've never seen anybody that can eat more than a bowl of this, because it is so hearty, so good, and it is definitely filling. So I'm going to put those to the side, and I'm going to get the spices together and show you what all we use for spice. Now here are all the spices you're going to need. If you don't like some of these, you can leave them out, but I would not recommend it. The combination of all of these spices works so well together to make this the most delicious chili that you're going to eat. So you're going to need some smoked paprika. You're going to need some garlic powder. You're going to need ground cumin. You're going to need ground white pepper. And this Badia brand is really good, by the way, because it is affordable. It's about half the price of most of the other spices out there, and the quality is just as good. You're going to need some onion powder. You're going to need some minced garlic. You're going to need some pink Himalayan salt or Redmond sea salt, whichever you prefer. You're going to need some ground black pepper. You're going to need some of this Hershey's dark cocoa powder, unsweetened, of course. You're going to need some cayenne pepper. You're going to need some chipotle powder, some chili powder, and some dark chili powder. The other thing you're going to need is some ground cinnamon. And I'll tell you about these chili powders. You can use whatever you have. The only thing that is essential, in my opinion, is just a regular chili powder. This dark chili powder is what is going to make all the difference in this. I get this at Walmart, and you would think dark chili powder is going to be really, really spicy, but this is actually a milder chili powder, and it really gives it a great flavor and a good backbone to this chili. Now there is one other thing that you're going to need from your cabinet, but I'm not going to tell you right now. It's a secret. You're going to have to watch the video for it, but I promise you it's going to be a game changer for chilies, for marinara sauces, for anything you make that may have a little acid in it from some tomatoes. So watch the video and find out my tip, and it will change the way that you do chilies and sauces from now on. I'm going to put this recipe down below, so I'm just going to measure everything out and we're going to dump it in. I dump all these at once. So there's various opinions on how you should make chilies, if you should do one spice dump and then another one. I have found in testing all my recipes out over the years that this is the best way to do it. So I'm just going to measure them all out, put them together. I'm going to dump all these in at once. So all I'm doing with these peppers is just cutting the ends off of them, and then I slice them in half lengthwise, and I use this slap chopper that I've already done the onions with to dice them up. So to prepare the meat, the only thing you need to do is cube up pork chops like that. And then with these little smokies, you want to cut them in half lengthwise like that. And then cut those halves in half again the same way. These are just going to give a great texture to this chili and just add a different dimension from what a lot of people are used to. If y'all are not subscribed, please take just a second and subscribe and hit the little bell icon that's down there so anytime I upload a new video, you'll know about it. So the first thing I want to do is turn my Dutch oven on a medium. I'm going to go ahead and dump these spices in here. Now, this is a technique that is used a lot in Indian cooking. You're going to dry roast these spices just for a minute to bring out all the flavor. So we're just going to let that kind of come in on medium just for a minute. So once you start to smell these spices, you're going to go in with just a tiny bit of olive oil. You don't need a lot of extra oil because you're going to have all the meat in here. So you just want to kind of use your nose on this, and once you start smelling all those spices start to come out, and they're toasted, and we're going to add the olive oil in. All right, so I'm starting to smell that pretty good. I'm going to go in with just a tiny bit of olive oil. And just stir that around like that. And I'm going to start bringing in my meats. I'm going to dump in my ground beef. Bringing in my ground sirloin. Throw that right in there. I'm going in with this Italian sausage. Make sure you pull that paper out. You definitely don't want to eat that. But I do want to get all that pork sausage in there. I'm going to come in with my big board here. Go ahead and put the pork chops in. And I'm going to hang on to these because these are already cooked. I'm going to put those in as soon as all this meat is cooked. So while all this meat's cooking, I'm going to go to this back burner here. I'm going to turn that on a medium. I've got the bacon grease from where I cooked the bacon in the microwave. So all that's in there. I'm going to let that come up to temperature. And I'm going to put the onions and all the peppers in to cook that while this meat's cooking. We'll just break this meat up like that and start cooking it down. Just going to scrape those bits up off the bottom. If it's sticking just a little bit, throw a little bit of water in there just to deglaze it. So where that's sticking right there, just dump that water in. Scrape that up. Going to add some flavor to that chili. Just don't let it burn because you don't want to ruin the chili. Just keep working that around like that. Keep it nice and scraped up. Just like that. There we go. Now that's looking good. All right, so we're going to let that sit. Now we got the bacon grease hot now. So I'm going to go in with all these onions and peppers. We're going to put those down. So that's a large, huge Vidalia onion, a bag of those sweet peppers, and then a couple tablespoons of that diced jalapeno. Now we're not going to drain this meat. We're just going to let it go. It's going to reabsorb all the juices back into it before we're done. But like I said, just make sure you get all these bits off the bottom and just keep cooking this meat down. We'll go in over here, give this a little stir. Basically what we're trying to do is just sweat this out here. You don't want to brown it or anything. Just kind of get it to release some of the water and cook down to a little better, drier consistency. All right, so now that this meat's cooked all the way through, what I'm going to do, you're going to add, if you've got the beef better than bouillon, you're going to add 1/4 of a jar in there. I've got this vegetable one. So I'm just going to go ahead and dump all of it in. It's a 1/4 jar left. And what I'm going to do to make this a little beefier is add my bone broth concentrate that I like. So just going to add that, about a good couple of teaspoons of that in there. And stir that up pretty good. Just like that, I'm going to go in with the vegetables. I'm going to keep cooking this down just a little bit. See how it's sweating out like that? You got some of that moisture releasing in there. We just want to cook that out a little more to get some of that moisture going. We're going to start throwing in this can of crushed tomatoes. I'm going to throw in these sliced stewed tomatoes. You go in with the rotel. Go in with the tomato sauce, not the lid. And the one thing that I did want to show you that I did not measure is the chili powder, because this is what I do. I'm going to go a good handful of that, 2 handfuls of that, a good handful of this regular chili powder, and then just a little bit of this chipotle. And I'm going to turn this heat down a little bit. I'm going to stir this up. And again, just make sure you're scraping that bottom. You don't want any of this to burn. And I'm going to bring this up to a full boil. And I'm going to show you the trick that I was telling you about earlier in this video. So once this comes up to a boil, I've got 2 teaspoons of baking soda here. I'm going to add a little water to it. And I'm going to stir it up in the water. Then what I'm going to do is add it to this chili. If you have any kind of indigestion problems, now if you're doing keto, you probably haven't had indigestion in quite a long time. But if you're not, and you make this recipe, you may have some indigestion from all this fat in here. So once this comes up to a boil, let me show you what happens. We're going to dump this in. And we're going to stir it up. You see how it foams up like that? You see all that foam? That's eating all the acid out of the chili. You see it'll change color like that. That's when you know that acid's getting neutralized in there. Now the last thing I'm going to do is just dump my vegetables in. It's all my onions and peppers there. And if you've got the time, bring this back up to a boil, and you're going to cook it on a simmer. Once it comes to a boil, you're going to turn it down to a simmer, and you're going to cook it on a simmer for 4 hours. I've got somewhere I have to go, so what I'm going to do is put it in a crock pot. I'm going to put it on low for 4 hours, and then when we come back, I'm going to show you what this looks like, and you're going to love it. So I've transferred this into my crock pot. I've got it on low for 4 hours. I'm going to go ahead and add in all the cocktail weenies, and I'm going to crumble up the bacon that we cooked earlier. Put it in there too, give it a stir, put the lid on it, and we'll come back in 4 hours and see what it looks like. Little smokies are in, bacon's in. Let's stir this up proper. Let's put the lid on it. And let's enjoy the way the house smells for the next 4 hours. And we'll come back and check it out. So with about 45 minutes to go, this is when I would recommend opening this up and checking it, giving it a little taste, and adjust for seasonings. So once it's done, you're going to have a little grease on top. You just want to go ahead and stir that in, incorporate it in the chili, and that will make it perfect. Now next up is not only a great comfort food, but also the backstory to the yellow mixing bowl. This is my biscuits and gravy. I've had a lot of great comments on this. I haven't made it in a while myself, but it's about time to. Watch this. So an old Southern classic that you can't have anymore when you're doing keto is biscuits and gravy. Or is it? I'm going to show you how to make biscuits and gravy, keto, almost carnivore, and as delicious as any country biscuits and gravy you've ever had. Hey, this is Victor with your Best Body Blueprint. And if you're from the South, or if you're from the North and have come to the South, then no doubt you've tried our biscuits and gravy. Some people call it sawmill gravy, but it's a sausage gravy over biscuits, like you can get at Cracker Barrel or any of the Southern diners down here. Any of the restaurants, Grandma's Table, biscuits and gravy are all over. These things will go great with bacon, eggs. They've got sausage in them already. And if you just want them as a meal on their own, they're more than enough. So I know you don't want to hear the history of the biscuits and gravy. So let's just start. I'm going to show you what ingredients you need, and let's start cooking. So what you're going to need for these biscuits is a cup of pork breadcrumbs or pork panko. You're going to need some salt, baking powder. You're going to need some sour cream. You're going to need a carton of liquid egg whites. half a stick of butter, and your favorite mixing bowl. I'm pretty sure we borrowed this from my sister-in-law's house and it just hasn't made its way back yet, but this is probably my favorite one. I'm sure it'll make its way back one day. So the first thing we have to do is cut this butter up into cubes, and then we're going to put it back in the refrigerator to get really, really cold. Because when you make biscuits, you got to have the cold butter so they won't come out right. So I'm just going to cut this into some cubes. I'm going to throw this whole cutting board right in the fridge. Cut it into some triangles. These little chunks are what helps make the biscuits real buttery with a crispy exterior. Just you want that little bit of crunch on the outside. Yeah, biscuits and gravy is a traditional Southern dish, so hope you like this version of it. So I'm going to just put this right in the fridge. I'll be right back for the next step. The next thing I have to do is measure out a cup of egg whites. Now these will work fine if you want to separate your own eggs from yolks. You got a way to use the yolks, go ahead. Sometimes if I'm going to make a mayonnaise, then I'll hold on to the yolks, but it's just easier for me to go with those and just measure it out. You're also going to need a little lemon juice for this part. I forgot to mention that earlier, but that's what's going to help these liquid egg whites whip up to stiff peaks. So we're going to put this in as soon as it kind of starts to bubble up from mixing it. We'll add this in and let it get to stiff peaks before we do the next step. So can you see all the bubbles in there? When it starts to bubble like that, we're going to get a teaspoon of this lemon juice in here. So I'm just going to go in with a teaspoon of lemon juice there and continue to blend this up on high. So you see how that's thickening up pretty good now, but it's still got a little ways to go. We're going to get peaks in this. So let's keep going on high. So the way you check to see if it's got stiff peaks or not, you just pull this up. If it holds that shape right there, you got stiff peaks. Let's try again right there. That's what we're talking about. I'm still going to go about another 30 seconds or so just to make sure. Then I'm going to put this in the fridge while I'm getting the other stuff together. That's what's up. So I'm just going to clean these. I'm going to put this in the fridge while I get the dry ingredients together. So now what I'm going to do is take a separate bowl. I'm going to take my cup with the pork breadcrumbs, and I've got a video on this on the channel also. I'll link it just to show you what I use to make them. Makes it really easy, and it saves you a bunch of money over buying them at the store. So to that we're going to add a teaspoon of baking powder, and I would say about a quarter teaspoon of salt too. And I'm just going to mix this together really well, and we'll go on to the next part. So I'm just going to take this sour cream and put it right in with the dry mix. I'm going to get my egg whites. I'm going to get my butter. And what I'm going to do is just mix this together, about like that. I'm just going to put it in with the egg whites. Now you don't want to mix these to death. You don't want to lose the airiness of the egg whites. And you just take this butter, kind of crumble it in there like that too, and we're going to incorporate all this together. And then we're going to put them on a small cookie sheet that's lined with parchment paper. Then we're going to put them back in the fridge for just a couple minutes. So just kind of fold it together like that. So that looks pretty good. I'm going to take this spoon. I'm just going to scoop out a big hunk like that. Put it right there. Tighten up. Tighten up now. I'm just going to make these little biscuits like that. Try to add a little more to each one. Try to make them into more of a biscuity shape. I like the biscuits big, so hey, I'm going to tighten that up. I'm going to put that back in the fridge for just a minute. And then we're going to put these in the oven. Now my oven's at 400 degrees, so I'm going to go ahead and toss these in the oven. So check on them in about 13 minutes. And if you want to see more recipes like this, then make sure you subscribe right there and hit that bell button. Every time I upload a new video, you'll get a notification and you can watch it right then. And what you're going to need for this gravy is some breakfast sausage or mild pork sausage. I like this one because it's the only one I can find that does not have MSG in it. And I couldn't find anything local today, so I had to get what I could get. You're going to need a block of softened cream cheese, so I just let it sit out for about an hour before I'm ready to start cooking with it. You're going to need a half an onion. You're going to need some bone broth. It's 2/3 of a cup of that. Y'all know I love this bone broth concentrate that I get at Walmart. And then you're going to need some Parmigiano Reggiano, some salt, and some fresh black pepper. So I'll show you how we put this together. So I was going to film this in the same location, but I forgot I had an unfortunate New Wave induction cooker accident the other day. I had it sitting back there where that tea kettle is, and I thought I was turning on the right burner and I turned on the left. So there's a little burned plastic and it just doesn't work the same. So I'm just going to take this hex clad pan, make sure I turn on the right burner to a nice medium. I'm going to heat this up a little bit and I'm going to put the sausage right in there. So I just put the whole tube of it in there, and it sure enough looks like dog food, but it doesn't taste like it, I don't think. I mean, I ain't never tasted dog food, but the way this smells when it's cooking and before it's cooking compared to the way the dog food smells, pretty sure it's a whole lot better. I know this is good when it's cooked anyway. I don't think I'm going to give the other a shot, and I'm going to cook it down. I'll show you what it looks like. So I'm just kind of going through and breaking it up in little chunks like that and let it cook up. I'll just keep breaking it down into little smaller pieces. Now while that's cooking, I'm going to go ahead and dice up this half onion, because that's going to go in there next and cook. You hear that? That's the sound of success. So we're just going to flip this over, keep breaking it down a little bit, keep on cooking it up. So it's been 13 minutes. I'm going to check on these. They're looking pretty good, but they got just a little bit to go. So I'm going to turn that pan around and let them cook for about 2 more minutes. So I just got these out of the oven. I actually had to cut those a little bit because they kind of ran together. And I cut those. What I'm going to do is just take them off and put them on this cooling rack for a minute. If there's any butter left on the bottom of this, you can always brush it in. I don't think that's going to be the case with these. So there was no butter left on there to put over the top. You can melt some butter if you wanted to put over the top of these, but this is what they look like. And I'm actually going to, I've turned the oven off, and so I'm just going to put them back in there to stay warm while I'm finishing the gravy that I'm making, that I'm going to show you the recipe to. So you can see these are a little bit flat, and I just looked at my baking powder and realized that stuff has been expired for about 6 months. So make sure your baking powder is fresh, and these are going to rise a whole lot more. But these are just like little pancake biscuits with some bad baking powder. So anyway, y'all know I'm not a baker, but I know this tastes good. They didn't rise that much this time, but next time they will. So this is how they turned out. You can also put them in a muffin pan if you want them to be a little taller. I'm just going to put these on a plate and put the gravy on top, so this is fine with me. It's going to be some great eating. So if you put these in the muffin pan, they come out like this. So depending on how you like your biscuits, if you like them flatter or a little bit higher. Now at this point I've just been breaking this down, just kind of moving it around, and it's done when you can't see any more pink in it like this. But I like that little bit of crust, just like that on the outside. So I'm going to kind of leave it alone. I'm going to spread it out and leave it for 3-4 minutes and let it develop a crust on the bottom before I go on to the next step. Alright, so this has been sitting in there and getting proper. That's what I'm talking about right there. That's what I like. So I'll leave it in there just a little bit longer. I'm going to try to flip it over and get a little crust on the other side too. It's pretty good right there. So what I'm going to do is just push these off to the side. I want all this grease to collect in the middle. And I'm going in with the onions. So I'm just going to throw the onions right in the middle, like that. And if you're like me, you might want a little garlic in there too. So these hex-clad pans that I use, I like them for a lot of different reasons. One of the best things they allow you to do is kind of move stuff up on the side and it'll stick there kind of like a wok. So I really like that about them. So yeah, I'll just let that onion and garlic cook down a little bit. Alright, so you see how they're just starting to brown up like that? That's when you want to go ahead and mix all this back together. One thing that I do want to mention at this point in the video is that a lot of people are going to want to go ahead and drain the grease after we've cooked this garlic and onion. I like a lot of grease, but you'll see, I'll show you at the end of the video how you have to stir it in and just keep stirring it in, where you can drain it right now and it'll make a gravy like probably more of what you're used to. I just like to have some of that extra fat in there because it's more flavor. And then we're going to add in a block of cream cheese. So I just threw the block of cream cheese in there. I'm just going to start cutting it up. And just mixing it around. And just kind of melting and incorporating that with this sausage and onions and garlic and all this goodness. Alright, and that's what you want it to look like before we go on to the next step. You don't want any chunks of cream cheese left in there. A little chunk right there, we'll get rid of that. Just mix it up. Let me go get the other ingredients. So now all I'm going to do is pour in this bone broth. I'm just going to stir it through. It's going to be pretty well combined. Then we're going to put in some Parmesan cheese. Stir that in. I'm going to turn it down to medium-low and just let it cook for 5-10 minutes or so. So I just tasted it, and it does need a little bit of salt. So I'm just going to go ahead and salt it just a little. I'm going to put in some fresh cracked black pepper, and then we're just going to let it cook on low for about 10 minutes. So that's about how much black pepper I put on there. To make a true southern gravy, that's about what you need. Now if you're like pure carnivore and you can't have the black pepper or don't want the black pepper because of oxalates or whatever, just leave it out. There's no problem. Man, it tastes quite as good without the black pepper. But that's just my opinion because that's just the way I like it. So we'll just give it a little stir and let it sit here and cook for just a few minutes and get nice and thickened up. Oh, and by the way, for this, if you don't have Parmigiano Reggiano, Parmesan works just fine. You just want a hard cheese. So don't go out and buy that special if you got some Parmesan sitting in there. Or just get the Parmesan anyway. It'll work fine. I just had that left over because I make the Rayo's meatballs, which I did the other night. And if you haven't seen that video, I'll put a link to it. But we just made those, so we had some of that Parmigiano Reggiano left over. So that's why I used it. Any hard cheese will work. So after it's been cooking about 10 minutes, this is what it looks like. You just kind of see that consistency of the gravy there. So it's going to be really good over those. Got some bacon cooking in the microwave. If you don't have one of these yet, I'll put the link down below. You got to get one of these bacon makers. There's no mess. I took the lid off. It's got a lid on it, but it's not messy at all, and it's quick. And it makes crispy bacon, as you can see. So you can see I didn't drain the sausage grease off of this. So what you have to do is stir it in. Now if you don't like this much sausage grease, you're trying to make it lower fat for like a high pro day or something like that, just drain it. It'll still be good, but I'm not doing a high pro day today. I'm doing all the fat today, and fat is flavor. So I'm gonna leave all that in there, stir it in, put it over these biscuits. All right, so this is how I like to finish it, is just put 2 biscuits on the plate, and just come over it with this gravy like that. It's got all the sausage in it. And this is a traditional Southern biscuits and gravy, but keto and a whole lot more healthy. So this is what's for dinner. Biscuits and gravy, some beautiful eggs, and some bacon. Another debatable choice of a comfort food might be sausage balls, but I'm telling you, there's nothing better than throwing some of these in the microwave, sitting back, and besides, they're super easy to make. I would say comfort food. I mean, who's not comforted by sausage and cheese? So check this one out and you let me know what you think. Sausage balls are one of those iconic dishes that always pop up around the holidays. Everywhere you go, just turn around and poof, there they are. They're loaded with some delicious pork and cheese. The problem with the traditional version is that they're also loaded with carbs. But my version is not. You can eat these guilt-free, and the best thing is if you bring them to a holiday gathering or a family event, nobody's gonna know they're keto. Let me show you how to make these right after this. These sausage balls have been around as long as I can remember. Pretty sure it's a Southern thing because most of the great recipes are, but that's just my guess. I do know we used a lot of Bisquick down here in the South, and so the way I like to make these is with almond flour and some baking powder instead of the Bisquick. And like I said, the best thing about these is you can make these, take them to any event, and nobody's gonna know they're keto except for you. These are a huge hit and something you can bring to a party or a gathering or a holiday meal, and people are gonna ask you for the recipe. They're really, really easy to make. They don't have a whole lot of ingredients, and they only take about 20 minutes to bake. So if you're looking for something last minute to take to a party, this is it. You're gonna love these. Let me get the ingredients together, and let me show you what you're gonna need to make them. You're gonna need a pound of sausage. Now this is the Walmart brand. I was at Walmart looking for sausage, and I looked at the Carolina Pride, I looked at Jimmy Dean. All of them had MSG in it, and I try to avoid MSG. This one's pretty clean. Pork, water, salt, spices, and sugar. But sugar is the last ingredient, so I don't really care that much about that. And you're either going to find sugar or dextrose in every single sausage that you find. If you look right there, there's not much in there. You're going to need some almond flour. You're going to need some baking powder. You're going to need some Parmesan cheese. You're going to need some sharp cheddar cheese. I like the extra sharp myself, but at least a sharp. You're going to need 1 egg. You're going to need 1 large egg. You're going to need some garlic powder, and you're going to need some onion powder. Super simple. I'm going to go ahead and measure out all these ingredients, grate my cheese, and then I'm going to show you how to put this together. And what I like to do now that I have all my ingredients measured out is go ahead and preheat the oven to 350 degrees. So I have all my ingredients measured out here. I'm just going to go ahead and start combining them all together. I'm going to start out with my pound of sausage. You can use any kind of sausage you like. I really like this brand a lot, but you can use a breakfast sausage, you can use Italian sausage. This is the traditional way to do it. I'm going to add in my almond flour, and I've mixed my baking powder, my onion powder, and my garlic powder together. I'm just going to pour those in. And I'm going to take the egg and beat it, just so it incorporates into this mixture better. I'll go ahead and pour that in. I'm going to go ahead and add in my cheeses. And although I would love to find a better way to do this, there's no way to do it other than just get in here and mix all this together until it's really well combined. Hey, plus it's just fun to do. Now, if you like sausage balls or any other holiday sides, make sure you're subscribed to my channel and hit the little bell. Anytime I upload a video, you'll know about it. So now that that's all combined like that, what I have here is just a large baking sheet. I've lined it with some aluminum foil and I've put a cooling rack on top. I'm just going to take one of these cookie scoopers and scoop out a good solid rounded portion like that. Put it right on here. It's just kind of rounded over the top like that. You can see that on the side. And just put it right on. If you see they're kind of coming apart like that, just press them together a little bit. They're going to be just fine. And what I like to do when I get them all rolled out like this is just kind of press them a little bit, just to get them together a little bit more. You don't have to do this, but I just find it makes a little bit better texture at the end. And there you have it. We're going to go ahead and put these in the oven on 350 degrees for 20 minutes. So one thing I forgot to mention, about halfway into the cooking process, I'm going to kind of roll these around like that just to keep them from sticking. But these are done. They're delicious. And I like to serve these with a little bit of the cranberry sauce. And I'll put a link to that video right up here. These are going to be delicious, and I hope you enjoy them. Man, what a great appetizer, and something you can feel good about making, knowing you're sparing yourself all the carbs, but you can still have a holiday favorite. Now, if you're wondering what to make alongside these for the main course, I'm going to put a video right up here that'll give you some great ideas for other things you can make. And I know you're going to find some stuff in there you're going to love. Thank you so much for watching my channel. Please enjoy this recipe and share it with people that you know that are looking for good low-carb alternatives to your favorite standard American foods. Let's go eat some sausage balls, and I'll see you on the next video. A great hot soup is definitely a comfort food. This is my New England clam chowder turned Southern. Check this out. Today on Southern Keto, we're going to make something that frankly ain't Southern at all. But what it is delicious. And if you're here and you're watching this video and you make it, it's going to be one of your favorites, just like it is mine. I'm going to show you how to put it together right after this. So I said clam chowder is not Southern, but I did grow up eating a lot of it because Campbell's made it. And my mom loved some Campbell's soup. So we would have that a lot when I was a kid, but it wasn't anything like this. This recipe has been perfected, so I didn't even try to do a Campbell's copycat recipe because this is so much better. And I couldn't find any Campbell's in my grocery store, but this one's probably actually a little bit better. But look at that, 42 grams of carbs in this bad boy. And it's got bioengineered food ingredients, whatever those are. So I'm going to show you how to make this one so much better. Another thing that might make it a little Southern is that my wife is from Maine originally, but she's been down here longer than she's been up there. So I call her an honorary Southerner. Now I didn't say ornery, I said honorary. So don't get that messed up. Anyway, they have all the lobster, all the crab, all the shrimps, and most importantly for this recipe, they have all the clams up there. So we're going to take those clams from up north, bring them down south, and I'm going to show you my version of the ultimate clam chowder. Y'all are really going to love it, so let me go ahead and get these ingredients together so I can show you how to make it. Here are all the ingredients you're going to need to make this clam chowder. You need a good olive oil, and when you're looking for an olive oil, find one that only has one country of origin on it. If not, you don't know what you're getting, and it may not even be olive oil. You're going to need some celery. You're going to need an onion, and I'm going to dice those up to a large dice using my chopper. And if you haven't seen this, I'll put a link to it down in the description. And it also is really good, as somebody pointed out in one of my comments. If you have arthritis and you haven't quite beaten that yet on keto, it's a lifesaver for chopping. You're going to need some butter. You're going to need some almond flour. You're going to need bay leaves. You're going to need some ground thyme. You're going to need 6 bottles of this clam juice. This is the Bar Harbor. My wife was from right around Bar Harbor. I think up there they pronounce it like Bahaba or something like that. So no, I don't have an accent. You got an accent. You're gonna need some heavy cream, one of my favorite ingredients, some bacon. This is the zero sugar. This is our Carolina Pride, loved by generations. But of course, if you can't find this, your bacon will do. You're gonna need some salt and some pepper. This is gonna be to taste. You're gonna need 8 cans of these clams. You're gonna need 3 bunches of radishes. And the last thing you're gonna need is some Italian parsley, fresh. And I know you're thinking this is weird, but this is my little trick. If you haven't seen it, you just take a glass, put about 1 inch of water in the bottom, chop the stems right there, drop the parsley right in that water, and that'll keep this fresh for 3 or 4 weeks. Where normally you have to throw it away after a day or 2. And yeah, there's a few yellow leaves in there, but the majority of it is green, and it's been about 3 weeks. So I'm gonna go ahead and prep all my ingredients, measure out what I need to measure, chop up what I need to chop up, and then I'm gonna show you how to put it together as soon as I'm done with that. Now, if you're liking this clam chowder video, make sure you hit subscribe right down there and click that bell, and next time I do a video, you'll know all about it. Once this gets hot, we're gonna go ahead and put in our bacon. Now, there's a couple different ways that you can tell that this olive oil is ready for the bacon. First one is your smeller. If you smell that olive oil, then it's time. If your smeller is not working, take a little bit of the water like this, drop it in, and if it sizzles, it's ready for the bacon. So let's throw the bacon in. We're just going to cook this until it's about halfway cooked. You don't want it crispy because you don't want that kind of texture in there. You want to keep a pretty soft texture throughout this chowder. So when that bacon starts to get a little bit brown like that, it's ready to go in with the celery and the onions. So we'll just dump those in, and we're going to cook them until they're softened and a little bit translucent. This is also the time where you want to scrape the bottom of your pan. Make sure you get all those good bacon bits up, which will help improve the flavor even more. Now the celery and onions are soft and translucent, so I'm going to add the butter in. And we're going to let that melt so we can add in our flour and make the roux that's going to thicken up this chowder. Now that the butter's all melted, we'll go ahead and dump in the almond flour. Give it a good stir, incorporate it all the way through this, and we're going to cook it for 4 or 5 minutes. You want it to be well incorporated, but not overcooked. I'll show you what it looks like. So after 4 or 5 minutes, this is what it looks like. It's kind of dried out a little bit, so we're going to go ahead and add in our clam juice. And you also want to scrape the bottom during this point, just to get all those bits out of the bottom, to get even more flavor. You're also going to add in the juice, and only the juice from these canned clams. You don't want to add the other clams in yet because they'll just get rubbery. We're going to add those in at the end. After you've added in all your liquids, you just want to bring this up to a simmer and just stir it up every once in a while just to avoid any kind of lumps. Now that this is at a good simmer, I'm going to go ahead and dump in all the radishes. And we'll bring it back up to a simmer so that these can get nice and soft. This is our potato substitute. Now I'm just bringing this all the way up to a boil, and I'm going to lower it to a simmer so that these radishes can get nice and soft. So this has been simmering for probably 10 minutes. And the way you want to check these is take one of your larger radishes and you want it to be fork tender. And what that means is if you can easily stick the fork into it like that, it's ready. So now we're going to mix in our other ingredients and we're going to simmer it until it's time to eat. So now you want to add in your bay leaves. Go ahead and add your cream in. Add in your thyme and add in all the clams. We're going to heat this up. We're going to taste it and see if it needs any more salt and pepper. We'll be right back. So I tasted this and it needs a little bit of salt, not much, but it needs some pepper. So I'm going to go ahead and put that in, stir it around, and this will be ready to serve. So this is all ready. If you want it a little bit thicker, you can always add in some xanthan gum. And another tip, if you don't like this red color in there, you can always peel your radishes, but I don't mind it. I think it makes it a little more interesting. So I'm just going to serve this up. And like I said, if you want it a little more thick, more of a chowder, you can add some xanthan gum to thicken it up a little bit. But I think it is delicious, just like this. And one more thing, make sure you fish out these bay leaves. Nobody wants a big mouthful of that. This time of year, nothing's going to hit the spot like a nice bowl of warm clam chowder. Next up is my recipe for country fried steak, chicken fried steak, whichever way you want to make it. It all depends on the gravy, but this base recipe is awesome. I hope you'll enjoy this one. One of the best Southern comfort foods you can get is chicken fried steak or country fried steak. I'll tell you the difference in a little bit. But basically every Southern diner and every Southern grandmother makes this. And if you walk into a diner down south, even though you're probably not going to order their chicken fried steak or country fried steak, I know I wouldn't, but if they don't have it on the menu, you better run the other way. So the traditional way to make it is with flour, egg, buttermilk, and of course the cube steak. You've heard of cube steak, right? If not, I'm going to tell you about it in just a minute. So I need to come up with a way to make it without flour, egg, and buttermilk. So let me think about that for a minute. Got it. Okay, I'm going to show you how to make it right after this. So I know you're wondering, what's the difference in country fried steak and chicken fried steak? Crazy as it sounds, it all comes down to the gravy. The country fried steak has a brown gravy, chicken fried steak has a white gravy, and I've got recipes for both. I'll link them up above and down in the description so you can check them out. So if you haven't heard of cube steak, basically what it is they take the top round or the top sirloin and they beat it with one of these. Oh, not this one. They beat it with one of these that's got the little, if you can see that, it's got the little imprints in there. It makes cubes. It makes cubes in the meat. Now you can do your own, of course. If you really need to take some aggression out, just put some of that top sirloin, cut it as thin as you can, put it between two sheets of plastic, and just beat the crap out of it. But if you don't have any aggression to take out, I would highly recommend buying it in the grocery store, because I kind of feel the same way about cube steak as I feel about hunting. The way I feel about hunting is as long as there's meat in the grocery store, there's no need for me to go out at 4 o'clock in the morning, sit up in a stand in the trees, and try to stay quiet. I can barely stay quiet for 5 seconds, let alone 5-6 hours trying to wait and see if something walks through the woods so I can shoot and probably miss it anyway. Anyway, just go back to your butcher section in your grocery store. It's already cubed, it's already flattened out. Get you a few pieces of meat depending on how many people you're feeding. And oh, what's that? Oh, they said I need to add a disclaimer in right here. Sorry, hang tight.
Warning, warning, the ketogenic diet may cause weight loss, loss of conditions such as diabetes, gout, skin tags, metabolic syndrome, depression, anxiety, and a whole host of other health conditions that they tell you that you need pills for. Please use caution and proceed at your own risk or under the advisement of a healthcare professional or someone else that does not have your best interest in mind.
Okay, so back to what I was saying. Just pick up a few pieces of that cube steak at the grocery store, depending on how many people you're feeding. Meet me right back here. I'm going to show you what else you need to put together this country fried steak or chicken fried steak. See you in a second. So let me show you all the ingredients you're going to need to make this keto country fried steak or chicken fried steak. The difference is in the gravy. The first thing you're going to need is this beef cube steak, and I got 4 of these, so it's about 1.5 pounds to 2 pounds. You're going to need some of this pork panko, and if you haven't seen my video on that, I'll leave a card up in the corner so you can see the easiest way that I've found to make it. You're going to need some almond flour. And I know some of you may not do almond flour. If not, this may not be the recipe for you. You may find something that you could substitute it for, but I doubt it. You're going to need a pink Himalayan sea salt, or Redmond's, either way. And you're going to need some pepper, and I prefer the fresh cracked pepper myself. So I got my pepper mill there, and I'm going to crack it, and then I'll use it. You're going to need 2 eggs. Local pasture raised is the best. Now let's get into our spice lineup, because you gotta have some spice in your life. Baking powder, not a spice, but you need it. Some baking soda, definitely got to have that. Some smoked paprika. If you don't have it, you could use the regular, but I wouldn't. You need some garlic powder. You're going to need some onion powder. And then, one of my favorite ingredients, this chipotle pepper Tabasco sauce. Now, you can use any kind of hot sauce that you like, but I'm telling you, it'd be worth buying because that gives it a really great flavor. You're going to need a really good olive oil. This is the one that I get at Sam's Club. It's 100% Italian. Just try to get one from a single source if you can. That way you know you're really getting olive oil. If you don't have any olive oil, you could use avocado oil as well, but I wouldn't. So let's get all these ingredients measured out and let's start cooking. So to put your breading together, you're just going to combine the pork panko and the almond flour together in a dish that's deep enough to put the steaks in. We're going to go ahead and put in our seasonings now. I just mixed them all together, and then we're going to combine them together until we get a uniform breading. Kinda. Not breading. Bad word. Coating. A coating. Next, we're going to need something so the steak will stick to that coating. 1 egg, 2 eggs, and one thing that I forgot to put in the list of ingredients earlier, but you're going to need some almond milk, or you could use heavy cream and a little bit of water. I think almond milk works out great. So that'll enable the steak to stick to the coating. And then you just go in with however much of your hot sauce you want in there. It's really a matter of personal preference. And man, that thing comes out slow. I should have took off the little cap and just poured it all in myself. And now you got to beat it up proper. Get that all incorporated so that we can dip the steaks into it and then into the breading. Coating. Either way, you know what I mean. It's not bread. We're not doing bread here. And now we're going to take these nice cube steaks and we got to season them. So with this, I just used a little bit of salt and pepper. You can use whatever you want. If you want to put something different on there, you certainly can. But to me, nothing brings out the flavor of a great steak like some good old salt and pepper. Plus, that's a traditional Southern way to do it, so why not? So if you like this country fried steak video and you want to see more like it, hit that subscribe button that lit up down there for you, and you'll know next time I upload another video. And this channel is called Southern Keto, right? Okay, so now it's time to... Can I just call this breading? Is everybody okay if I just call this breading? Leave me a comment down there and let me know what you think. If not, I'll try my best to figure out a different thing to say, but I've always called it breading. I'm about to bread these cube steaks, so I'm going to dip it first in the breading. I'm going to get it all on there really good. Now you can dip it in the egg wash first if you want to, but I like to get it a little bit on there because I've got some baking powder in there that's going to help dry it out just a little more. So then I'll dip it in my egg wash and I will go back in to the breading. Make sure you get them coated really good and nice, and then just lay them out to the side and work on the next one. I'm going to speed this up just a little bit for you, and I'm going to give you some sweet breading music while I do these. Now after those are all breaded, I just want to let them hang out for just a little bit to dry out just a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and take my oil, put it in the pan, and I'm going to let it start heating up just a little bit because we're going to fry these babies up. Yeah, I just needed a little more. That was olive oil. I'm going to turn it on a medium heat and start these heating up. Medium high. Okay. Why not? If it gets a little too hot, we'll turn it down a little bit. Now by now you probably know my trick of what to do to make sure your oil is ready to go. So I'm going to throw a little bit of water in there, and when it starts to bubble like that, it's ready to fry. So I'm just going to lay these steaks in there. You always want to lay them away from you just so you don't splash anything up on yourself. And make sure you don't crowd the pan. You only want a couple of these in so they'll fry up proper. Now can we all just take one moment for a sound that I think we all agree is one of the best sounds that you can ever hear? So after the edges are brown on one side, just take it and flip it over. Now some of this breading is going to come off, and maybe I should have left that in a little bit longer, but guess what? I'm going to flip it again in a little bit, and it's going to come out just fine. Man, these things are looking good. Now I'm going to go ahead and flip them over again because that top, I didn't quite leave it down long enough. And guess what? When you're really cooking, things like that are going to happen. But once it's done, you just take it out, put it on a paper towel, and just let some of that grease drain off of it. Not that it's a bad thing. You just want them to crisp up a little bit. And so by doing that, they're going to be nice and crispy for you. Man, that is popping out of control. I better get these other ones in here. Let's cook these, and I'll be right back. Man, when these are done, it is time to eat, and these things are going to be good. Let's go ahead and plate them up here. Put one piece of my nice steak down there. And then depending on if you're having country fried steak or chicken fried steak, you got to go in with some gravy. Oh man, this is going to be good eating. Now this ain't a Southern comfort food, but it is a comfort food that everybody loves. Just low carb. This is my lasagna. I took inspiration on this from a couple different places, but I hope you'll enjoy it. And I'm telling you, if you try it like this, you'll never want the old one again. So I was trying to figure out something quick and easy to make the other night, and I was just going through YouTube like I do. I love watching YouTube. I love watching all the other keto and carnivore folk, at least the ones that are not trying to divide everybody. And I ran across a video that Nisha did. I'm sure nobody knows who Nisha is, or Dr. Barry. Anyway, there's some pretty good keto carnivore people you may have heard of. Nisha was cooking a recipe from Maria Emmerich. Some of you may have heard of her too. And I've made a lot of her recipes over the years, but I had never seen this one before for this meat lasagna. So I'm like, oh man, that looks awesome. I do a lot of Italian cooking, so what I decided to do is take her recipe, kick it up just a couple notches, and I'll show you the extra things that I put in it and how it turned out right after this. So as y'all may or may not know, I can't leave anything well enough alone. This recipe on its own is going to be absolutely fantastic, and I'm going to put a link down below to Nisha's video and to the original one that Maria Emmerich did so that you can check those out. But I just couldn't leave it well enough alone, so I had to add just a few ingredients in there myself to kick it up a couple notches. Now I've got a great lasagna recipe that I make myself that I'll link down there, but it takes a lot more work than this one. This one was super simple and easy, and when I'm telling you it came out delicious, it came out delicious. I'm gonna show you how simple and easy it is. I'm definitely having this again. You can make your own sauce like I do, but in this video I used a jarred sauce that's really good from Aldi, as well as a lot of great ingredients. Hers is carnivore, mine's not quite carnivore. I'd say maybe dirty carnivore, if that's a thing. I think it is, not sure. Anyway, if there's a dirty carnivore, this is it. Nothing super crazy in here, but let me show you what I added. This is gonna be one of your favorites, I can tell you that much. Check this out. You're gonna need some sausage, hot or mild, and some ground beef. You're gonna need an onion, preferably not this tiny, but a medium size, Gonna need some chicken breast lunch meat. I got this 1 pound at Aldi, used half of it. You're gonna need some mozzarella cheese. Make sure you get the low moisture part skim. You're gonna need Parmesan cheese. You're gonna need some ricotta. I get this at Aldi. It's a great brand. Make sure you get a whole milk ricotta cheese. None of that fat-free stuff. You're gonna need 2 jars of marinara sauce, and I'll leave a link to mine up above if you wanna make your own that's even more delicious. You're gonna need some pink salt, either the Himalayan or the Redmond's. You need some minced garlic and an egg. One thing I use to kick this up notches unknown is this Italian seasoning. You're gonna need an olive oil. I love a good olive oil. This one's from Italy. Just make sure you get a single source like I've mentioned before. You're gonna need some black pepper. I kicked it up with some spinach because we love spinach in Italian food. And fresh basil. Uh-oh. Do you hear that? It sounds like the Keto Police. It is the Keto Police! Well, they're here because of this. I used a little bit of wine. Sometimes I cook with wine. Sometimes I even put it in the food. I went ahead and cooked the spinach according to package directions and then put it in a strainer. You got to get this really, really dry. You don't want to add any extra moisture in there. So put it in there, kind of pick it apart a little bit, and then you can dry it the best you can with the colander. Now I'm going to take some of that good olive oil and put it in one of my favorite pans. We're going to go ahead and heat that up on medium heat, and you know my trick about knowing when that pan is ready for those onions, the water trick. When that pan's hot enough, we're going to go in with these onions and we're going to cook them down. You want to cook them down a good bit. Make sure they're nice and translucent. While those are going, I'm going to go ahead and preheat my oven to 425 degrees. After I preheat the oven, I'm just going to give this a little stir. See how they're browning like that? That's some of that good caramelization that you want. That brings out the sugar in the onion, makes it nice and sweet without ever having to add any sugar. It's going to kill your diet. And once those are translucent like that, we're going to go in with both of the meats. Just dump them both right in there. We're going to break them up a little bit, and we're going to cook this meat down. But that olive oil and that onion is really going to flavor that meat proper. I'm going to throw in that garlic, minced garlic. Do as much as you want, but we love some garlic around here, so I'm going in with about that much. Now we're going to take that good full fat ricotta, put an egg in it, and watch this bad boy slide down the slide just like at a water park. Oh, he's just having so much fun in there. It's about to be real happy in a few minutes when I mix him in, but first, I need to take some of this pink Himalayan salt, or the Redmond's, whichever you prefer. You got to salt your ricotta. It's going to help bring out all the flavor and add just another layer of depth to this recipe. So salt it really well, and then we're going to mix our egg in. So just do however you want. I used a spoon, just kind of beat them up in there like that. But you can use a fork, use a spatula, use whatever you want, whatever works good for you. But the main thing is you got to take that, incorporate it in so it's a good even mixture in there for our filling for the beautiful lasagna. Well, the Keto Police are gone. They confiscated all my wine except for this little bit. So I don't know how they didn't find that, but I'm just going to use this just to season that meat. Again, it gives it a nice depth of flavor. And what am I going to do with this little bit that's left over? Guess I'm going to have to properly dispose of it. So now we're going to cook that wine down just a little bit. And don't worry, if you're cooking with wine, as long as you get it up to boiling, it cooks all the alcohol off and just leaves that great taste. So you don't have to worry about getting the kids drunk or anything. So after all your pork and your ground beef are in there and proper, and I cook it a little bit under well, I'm going to go in with my marinara sauce. And with this one I used just 1 jar. I got another one for backup just in case there's not enough. And there's not enough. So I used a little more out of the other one. You just kind of want to get a good consistency in there, however you like your sauce. And if you notice, I didn't drain the fat off of that at all. You just cook this for a little while, and that good fat that's going to keep us full and happy will absorb back into it. So not a lot of people know that, but you just cook it long enough until you don't see that grease anymore. So now once it's like that, it's popping nice. I'm going to throw in some fresh basil, and I did shred it up. Hey, if you like quick and easy keto meals like this, make sure you hit the subscribe button that lit up right down there for you, and you'll know anytime I make another quick and easy keto meal. Now it's time to start building this beauty. So take a lasagna pan or a baking dish and just start ladling in some of the sauce like that. And it's a little blurry. It's not going to look like that when you're cooking it. Or maybe it will if you had too much of that wine. Oh, there we go. That's better. All right. Got a little worried there for a second. So you just want to get a nice layer across the bottom. That's going to make sure that none of this lasagna sticks. And it also makes sure that you get enough meat in for the day. It's a great sauce. We're just going to layer on these pieces of chicken lunch meat. That's going to be our noodle. And believe it or not, this really separates the layers and makes it nice. I'll show you that in a little bit. Now we're going to build onto that with layers and layers of flavor, starting with that ricotta blend. So make sure you plop it on there real good like that and give it a good spread. Make sure it's evenly spread over that whole layer, because that's part of it. You want every bite to have some of this beautiful ricotta mixture. So now that that ricotta layer is done, I'm going to go ahead and season it with some of this Italian seasoning. I just love that. It's not in the recipe, but you know I like to kick it up a couple notches, and that's going to do it. Once that's properly seasoned, I'm going to put on my spinach. Again, not in the recipe, but I grew up watching and believing what Popeye had to say, so of course I got to go in with the spinach. Now that that's done, I had shredded some of that mozzarella cheese, that beautiful low moisture mozzarella. So if you have some of that on hand, you can use it. But you can also, and I believe the recipe calls for just the slices of mozzarella, and you can put those on top as well. I add some of that later. The next thing, another layer of that beautiful meat sauce. That is some good stuff. That gives you the protein you want, gives you what you need. This is a great meaty lasagna, and it really surprised me how good it came out. So make sure you get that layer on there, cover the whole thing, and then go in with some more cheese. Now what I did is mixed in that Parmesan with the mozzarella, so that's why you won't hear me talk about that anymore, but it's all in there. Now it's time to add another layer of that chicken breast. And I'm telling you, when you try this, you're never going to believe there's not noodles in there. It surprised my son. He's not keto. We didn't tell him. I didn't want him to say, nah, I want something else. So anyway, we gave it to him. He ate it and was none the wiser. Or at least he didn't say he was. If so, he ate it anyway, so it didn't really matter. Any guesses on the next layer? Yep, we're going in with some more of that ricotta. And you can just plop it, or you can dump it like this, and then just make sure you spread it out all the way. You want a good layer of everything that you put on here. So just make sure it's spread out really good so that when you cut it, you can see those lines. And hey, when you're really cooking, you might get a little messy like me. I drug some of that meat sauce in there, but guess what? It's still going to taste delicious. It might be a little ugly right now, but we're about to cover the whole top of this piece anyway, and you're never going to know. So I'm going to go in with some Italian seasoning. Again, every layer, layers of flavor. Get this thing proper. A little bit of spinach for the Popeye effect. You know, how you going to get muscles without your spinach? But like I said, if you're doing a carnivore one, probably going to leave that spinach out unless it's dirty carnivore. Now I'll put some more of that mozzarella on there. Oh, hang on. Got a little spinach runaway. But that's how you can use this sliced cheese. And like I said, you could use that for the whole thing. I just had some of that on hand already. And if you don't like the way it looks, hey, flip it around and try it again. You're not going to hurt anything. This is all going to melt. It's going to get delicious. I'm going to put the rest of that shredded cheese that I had left over on there. And then, what's next? Oh yeah, another layer of sauce. That's right. Now I know it's looking pretty full, and it is full, as you're going to see in a minute, but it's going to turn out just fine. Now my efforts to push this meat sauce down in there were not that successful. I mean, it's still pretty full, but believe me, it's going to come out okay. What we're going to do is top the rest of it with some more cheese. Put all you got on there. You can even go in with some more of those slices if you want to. If you like more cheese, put more cheese. I want a little bit at the top because there's so much in through there already. But you use however much cheese you want in your kitchen. This looks pretty good to me. Maybe I could have used a little more, but once you bake it, it's going to melt down, it's going to get delicious, and it's going to cover the top. You'll see that in a second. But what we got to do is cover it with some foil first, because we're going to actually bake it twice. We're going to throw it in there, in the oven right now, for its first little bake, so it starts to get real happy. I'm just going to go ahead and bake it to begin with for 25 minutes. Once it's been 25 minutes, we're going to take it out of the oven, and we're going to take the foil off. And if a little bit of cheese sticks to it, don't worry, just pull it off and stick it back on. And then I put it on a baking sheet in the oven just in case there's spillage. We're going to cook it again for 25 minutes. After this 25 minutes, I don't know if you can see that bubbling or not. I bet you can. We're going to take it out and go over and set it down to serve it. Now, I'll go ahead and tell you this. I didn't leave it sitting long enough. If you leave it to set up for about 30 minutes or so, those layers are going to get really nice and defined, just like when you keep it in the fridge for a day if you do it like I do. Once I pulled it out and reheated it the next day, oh man, those layers were awesome. But look how good that looks. It's bubbling up. That cheese is delicious. We just couldn't wait to eat, so we just had to eat. Now, if you leave out that little bit of extra sauce that I put in, it's probably not going to be quite this full. But we're not scared of tomatoes around here. It doesn't affect us. If it does affect you, I wouldn't eat this recipe anyway. But maybe you've gone carnivore for a little while, and now you're ready to do some keto stuff, and tomatoes might be your friend again. Give it a shot. Only you know what's right for you. And now it's my favorite time. Oh, it's serving time. So we'll just take this out like that, put it on, and it stayed together pretty good. But like I said, if you'll leave it sitting for about 30 minutes and you don't have people that are ravenous because you've been filming videos of you cooking this stuff and it takes 3 times as long as it should have, then leave it sitting for a half hour and you're going to have some beautiful layers. But look how good that looks. It's absolutely delicious. So I'm just going to go ahead and take another piece out, and then that way my wife and son, they need to eat, and then, you know, the rest of the pan, it's probably what I'll eat. So, there you go. Got to make sure they're fed, though. I really think y'all are going to enjoy this. Definitely let me know what you think. Now, of course, if you like keto Italian food, I've got a whole playlist right here with some other Italian keto recipes that you're going to love. Check those out next. As always, I appreciate you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Now an old Southern classic. Go down to the coast and you're gonna find some good shrimp and grits. I make my version with the shrimp, but without the grits, but I got a great substitute for it. Check it out. So this channel is called Southern Keto. So I'm sure a lot of you have been wondering, where in the world is your shrimp and grits recipe? I'm from the upstate of South Carolina, so here is more barbecue and burgers, where if you go to our coast, places like Charleston, Beaufort, and even down into Georgia a little bit to Savannah, they have these beautiful shrimp that they bring in every day. You can sit out and watch the shrimp boats come in with a fresh catch, and there's nothing better than fresh shrimp along with some grits. Now, if you're not from the South, you may be thinking, what in the world is a grit? Well, grits is a Southern recipe. It's kind of like polenta, but instead of a small grind of corn, they make a really big, coarse grind of corn. We've got a lot of these corn mills still around that you can go and check out how they use these giant stones to crush the corn. And grits are just creamy and delicious, kind of like the polenta, but a lot thicker, this great texture that sets up these shrimp perfectly. But why are we talking about corn? My grits aren't made with corn. What are they made with? I'm gonna show you, and I'm gonna show you my secret ingredient that makes them so delicious. You won't know the difference between those and regular grits. Stick around. One of the classic Southern dishes that people think about when they think about the South
is shrimp and grits. If you've vacationed along the coast, you know. You've had them and you know how great they are. There's a few variations of these that I've had over the years. Some people use tasso ham. Some people use bacon in them. I've decided to use a sausage in mine. If you don't like sausage, use that tasso ham, use that bacon, use whatever you like. And some of the traditionalists probably have their pitchforks and torches ready to come after me, saying you don't need to put anything in but just the shrimp and the grits. And that's fine too if that's what you like. I just like flavor. So I'm gonna kick it up a little bit. I'm gonna show you all my secrets to making the most delicious non-corn grits that you can make. And the secret of that corn taste without the corn. If y'all are ready to take a trip along the South Carolina coast, buckle your seatbelts and let's get right into it. I'm gonna show you what you need for my delicious shrimp and grits.
The first thing you're gonna need for this shrimp and grits is a couple bags of cauliflower. You're also gonna need some shrimp. I got these colossal ones from Walmart, and they are peeled and deveined, but I like the tail on. You're also gonna need a sausage. I got this beef smoked sausage from Aldi. You're gonna need some cream cheese. You're gonna need some butter, and I like this Kerrygold or the Irish butter from Aldi. You're gonna need a lemon. You're gonna need some heavy cream. And I also get this one at Aldi. You're gonna need just some plain old H2O, good old water. You'll need salt, either Redmond's or pink Himalayan. You're gonna need some white cheddar cheese or your favorite white cheese. Either one's fine if you don't have this one. You're gonna need some black pepper, and you can grind it fresh if you like to. I just made it easy on this one. You're gonna need your favorite seasoning for those shrimps, and I love the all-purpose seasoning. You're gonna use some Worcestershire sauce. That's just to give it some extra flavor. It really makes a big difference, but you don't have to use it. And my secret ingredient, you're gonna need some of this cornbread extract. That's what gives it the corn flavor. That's what makes it taste like grits without using the corn. So now to a blender, I'm gonna add in my frozen cauliflower rice. Now make sure this is frozen. This is key to giving it a texture that is just like grits. Make sure it is not thawed out no matter what you do. And just go ahead and add in both bags. We're gonna do this all at once. Now make sure you start with your lowest speed and then just kind of work your way up a little bit if you need to, if you don't have a high-speed blender. If you have a high-speed blender, you can probably put it on your medium setting and it's gonna come out just fine. Just experiment with yours. You want a real fine texture. Now I'm gonna go ahead and cut up my sausage, and what I've done is just cut it into little slices like that, and then I'm just gonna quarter those because we want bite-sized pieces. You want real small pieces to go with the shrimp. And this is the consistency that you want your cauliflower to be when it's done. So once you've got your cauliflower proper, we're gonna go ahead and slice this lemon because we need the juice of it. So we're just gonna cut it in half. We're gonna go in with our lemon juicer, and if you don't have one of these, I'm gonna leave the link down below for you. It's really handy. You always wanna use fresh squeezed lemons because of the enzymes in there. It just makes it a whole lot better, taste-wise also. Now I've put these shrimps in my favorite bowl. I love using this bowl. It's my favorite bowl in the entire world. And I'm just gonna season this up with that all-purpose seasoning. I'm gonna mix it all in there, get everything coated really well. Now you can use as much or as little seasoning as you like, but I definitely recommend putting a good bit of seasoning on there to give it some extra flavor. I'm just going in one more. How about that? Just make sure you give it a good mix. You don't want a whole ton of seasoning on one shrimp and none on the rest. So just use your wooden spoon and go around and kind of get that seasoning proper throughout. Now once that's done, we're going to take one of my favorite kitchen tools, that gallon Ziploc bag. It's already got the lemon juice in it, and we're just going to go ahead and dump in the shrimp right on top of that lemon juice. This is what's going to marinate it. It's going to give it a delicious citrus taste. It's absolutely wonderful in shrimp and grits. Traditional Southern, that's just the way we do it. And we're just going to let it sit there and get real happy while we make the grits. And there's nothing shrimp like more than a nice massage, so go ahead and give them a little rub. They're going to love it and get all that flavor in there for them.
Now if you like traditional Southern recipes like this and you're not subscribed to my channel, just hit the little button down there. It just lit up for you. And anytime I do a traditional Southern but keto recipe, you'll know about it.
So go ahead and take your favorite pan and turn it on a medium heat. What we're going to do now is pour the cauliflower in there, and we're just going to kind of dry roast it just to make sure that all the moisture's out of it. Normally it is, but sometimes if you get a bad batch that's been refrozen, it'll have some ice on there. You see how that's steaming like that? You just want to make sure this is nice and dry before we start making these grits. Break up any small chunks that you might have, give it a good stir, and kind of keep moving it around. You don't want it to sit there. You don't want it to get brown because grits are not brown. So if you brown it, no problem, it's not going to affect the taste. Now once you're pretty satisfied that all the lumps and chunks are out of it, we're going to go ahead and pour in that heavy whipping cream. One thing I forgot to mention earlier too, if you don't like black pepper, if you want it to stay a nice white consistency the whole time, you could use white pepper instead of black pepper. Now it's time to dump in our butter, and then of course we got to season it. So we're going to go ahead and put in the salt and pepper now. And now it's time to put in our secret weapon in the battle against carbs, the cornbread extract. I like to put it in now because it gives it a good chance to incorporate while this is heating up. Get all the way through this cauliflower, blend really good in with the salt and pepper, and just get that flavor proper just the way it's supposed to be. Now remember, this is going to thicken up a little bit as it cooks, so now's the time to make the decision. If you want it a little bit thinner, use some more heavy cream. It's time to start on these beautiful shrimp. Now I'm using bacon grease to cook these. You could use lard, you could use beef tallow, but I really believe that for that depth of flavor and that true traditional Southern taste, you really need to use bacon grease. Now I used a good bit. I like a good bit of flavor. If you don't like that much, don't worry about it. Don't use that much. You could also use olive oil or avocado oil if you want to, but bacon grease is going to make it have inner peace. Now once that bacon grease has gotten hot, and I've got this on a medium heat, it's going to start smoking a little bit. I'm going to put that sausage in. I'm going to brown this sausage up proper. I mean, it's just another layer of flavor. You can use bacon again, like I said. You could use the ham, the tasso ham, but to me, nothing says shrimp and grits like a little bit of sausage in there on the side. It's traditional. It's the way they do it in the Low Country. When I'm down there visiting my family, this is what they do. Sausage. Oh man, this is going to be so good. We're going to cook this for a little bit, let it get nice and brown and a little bit crispy, and add all that flavor. And I'm going to show you what it looks like when we're ready to go to the next step. And don't forget about your grits over there. Give them a stir every once in a while, because like I said, you don't want them to brown. You want to keep that really nice, really white, just like the white corn grits that we're used to down here. Can you smell that? Well, probably not, but it's getting right in here. Now that's not how cooked we want it yet. It's going to get more brown. I'll show you what it looks like, but just keep stirring it too. And it's time to taste those grits. It's getting pretty proper in there. You see them boiling away. I didn't think it was quite salty enough, so I'm going to add some salt. And I really do like a nice peppery taste in the grits. That's the way my Nana made them. We always had a little bit of pepper in there. She used black pepper because at the time back then, they didn't have white pepper. We didn't know what white pepper was. It was black pepper or no pepper. So that's what I'm going to use in there. I'm going to taste it until it's just the way I like it. And then that sausage ought to be about done. Oh yeah, baby, that sausage is getting right. So what we're going to do now is just take it out. I'm going to put it on a paper towel lined plate. And I'm using a slotted spoon because I want to keep all that delicious grease right there in the cast iron skillet to add the flavor. So I'm just going to dip it out. Use whatever kind of slotted spoon you have. This one works really good for it. I turned the heat down right there just a little bit just to make sure that this grease doesn't burn, because the last thing you want is to waste that grease. But man, look how delicious that looks. That's nice. It's got a crispy skin on the outside, and it's going to be really good once we put it back in the shrimp and grits. If you like me doing videos like this, please hit the like button down there and leave me a comment and let me know. I've got a plan to do a few of these in a series,
maybe some sauces, maybe some different things. And if you're not subscribed, hit the subscribe button too, and you won't miss any of them if I do them.
Now, whatever you do, don't throw away that grease. We've got that bacon in there. We've got that sausage taste in there. And now we got to go in with these shrimp to give them some flavor. I just dump in all of it. The lemon juice, the seasonings, dump it all in there. We got layers of flavor that we're building up here. It's not about complex ingredients. It's about really good, simple ingredients that go well together and make this shrimp and grits a delicious Southern classic that you're gonna love. Now I'm gonna cook these shrimp for just a couple minutes on each side. And I don't know if you know it or not, but they've got a built-in thermometer. Once they turn a little bit pink, they're done. And we want them just to barely be pink because we're gonna actually add these shrimp back in. Once we make a pan sauce, we're gonna add them back into it. So you just wanna cook them through. You don't want them to be fully done, just almost done. So if you can see the pink on there, their little internal thermometer lets you know when it's time. But just make sure that it's barely cooked. You don't want to overcook these shrimp unless you like eating rubber. And if you like the taste and texture of rubber, just get you a cheap pair of flip-flops at Walmart. It's going to be a lot less expensive than you ruining this shrimp by turning it into rubber. So after about a minute and a half, maybe 2 minutes on the other side, we're going to go ahead and take these out also. Use that slotted spoon. Keep all that pan juice in there. It's very important because we're making a pan sauce now that's really going to kick it up. So just put it right there on top of the sausage. Leave all the juices in there. Again, don't throw them away. But look how wonderful that looks. I mean, that's just, oh, that's some good stuff. And if you've never had shrimp and grits before, you've never been down to the coast of South Carolina, don't worry about it. Just follow this recipe, save yourself the carbs, and I promise you it's going to be just as good. So let's go back to the grits and dump in that cream cheese. We're just going to start to incorporate that. That's going to make a creamy texture inside these grits, just like traditional Southern grits. And while we're at it, let's go in with a little bit of cheese. Now, cheese is optional in this. Some places use cheesy grits. Some places or people use regular plain grits. It's whatever you like, whatever your taste buds are craving. I like the cheese in there. If you don't do cheese, don't do the cheese, but you know, you got the cream cheese in there already, so you might as well. And it's going to just make it delicious. It really complements that shrimp and sausage really well. I think you'll like it if you go ahead and try the cheese in it, if you can have cheese. So now if you're ready, we can go ahead and build our pan sauce to add on to those layers of flavor. So we're going to take those pan juices and we're going to add some water right in there and give it a nice little stir. And then we're going to add in one of my favorite ingredients for some great seafood flavor. It's Worcestershire sauce. Now, you can also use a shrimp stock in here, but I feel like that the anchovy taste from this Worcestershire sauce gives it just the right amount of kick, a little unexpected depth of flavor, and just something that if you didn't have it in there, you probably wouldn't miss it. But when it's in there, you're like, oh man, what does that taste? I like it. Now I'm going to turn this up to high because we need to cook this down. We're concentrating all the flavors of this. We're going to need to thicken it up a little bit, evaporate off a lot of that water, and just concentrate the flavors to make the pan sauce to put the shrimp and the sausage back in. Now at this point, we're going to go ahead and add in our butter to the pan sauce. I mean, can you really have too much butter? And I know we put it in the grits, but I feel like everything needs to match. So we're just going to make it match, melt this butter down, and let that flavor continue to concentrate and that water continue to cook off so that we get a nice pan sauce to put our shrimp and sausage in. And we're about ready to serve this thing. And once that pan sauce is looking like this and you can run your wooden spoon along the bottom and you can see where it just kind of holds there for a minute, it's ready. So at that point, we're going to put our shrimp and our sausage back in just for a minute or two to heat it back up so that we can serve these delicious shrimp and grits. Hope y'all are enjoying this video. I'm going to show you what it looks like when we plate it up. Oh man, and now it's time to plate this up and eat it. Now I'm not doing anything too fancy with this. You can fancy it up as much as you like. I'm just getting a good plop of grits in each bowl. And then I'm going to cover it with this beautiful shrimp and sausage. And then we're going to go in with a little bit of that pan sauce, because that pan sauce adds flavor to the shrimp, to the sausage, but it also makes a great sauce to go on the side when you put it on the grits. Man, will you look at that? If you're wanting to know what life is like along the coast of South Carolina, this whole area down here, make these shrimp and grits and take a little southern keto vacation with me right on the coast.
Brown some ground beef and have a manwich night. Except that can of manwich has a ton of carbs. But I'm going to show you how to make it where it doesn't, and I think it tastes even better than the original. Check it out.
Daddy's home!
When it's dinner time and time's tight,
I just brown some ground beef and have a manwich night.
Mom's working late and you've got to feed 'em right.
We just brown some ground beef and have a manwich night.
Your team's played all day and hasn't had a bite.
Mom just browned some ground beef. Manwich night.
Hunt's Manwich with tomatoes, onions, peppers, and your ground beef makes tonight a manwich night.
Just brown some ground beef
And have a manwich night.
We're Beatrice.
Or how about this one?
Oh, mama, don't feed me no bologna. I don't want no ham and cheese. I want something hot and hearty. I want a manwich, please.
Don't feed me no bologna.
Oh yeah, I want a manwich, please. No, I'm not talking turkey. I want a bigger deal. Don't feed me just a sandwich. I want a manwich meal.
Don't feed me no bologna.
Oh, I want a manwich meal.
Mama, don't feed me no bologna.
Oh yeah, I want a manwich meal.
I bet you don't remember how much sugar and junk is in manwich. So today I'm going to show you how to make a healthy version of it that you'll feel good about eating right after this. Sloppy Joe. Now I've got a great Sloppy Joe recipe too, but there's something about manwich that's just different. The flavors in it are phenomenal, and I think I got real close with this. And it uses good ingredients, there's no sugar in it, and it might just become one of your weeknight staples. It's quick and easy to put together, it's inexpensive, which you know, I'm cheap, and you can have it on the table in no time. So I'm going to show you all the ingredients you need to put together this manwich, how to make it, and my absolute favorite way to eat it. Check it out. So the first thing you're going to need for this low-carb manwich is a can of tomato sauce. Now it's an 8-ounce can, and nowhere on the ingredients does it say that it has basil, garlic, and oregano. But after trying this with a few different versions of tomato sauce, I'd recommend getting the one with basil, garlic, and oregano for that manwich taste. The next thing you're going to need is 1 cup of ketchup. Now this is the ketchup that I make, and I'll leave a link to that video that's got the recipe to it up top and in the description. But if you make mine for this recipe, just leave out the clove and the allspice for the authentic manwich taste. Or just use your favorite keto-friendly ketchup. The next thing you're going to need is some brown sweetener. Now, I love this Splenda Magic Bakers, as you know, but now it does have a little bit of molasses in it. So if a little bit of molasses is going to bother you, then just use your favorite sweetener. But as you can see, it's just erythritol, allulose, glycerin, and stevia leaf extract, other than that little bit of molasses. The next thing you're going to need is some dry minced onion. And this is granulated, it's not the powder. Next, you're going to need a nice green pepper. Now we're just going to use a little bit of this, but make sure you get a real good one. And make sure you don't want that stem in there, so make sure you get that bad boy off. Then you're going to need some salt. Now use either the pink Himalayan or the Redmonds, whichever one you like. Just make sure you get a pink unrefined salt that has all the minerals in it that you need. You're going to need some minced garlic. Now you're more than welcome to get cloves of garlic, mince it yourself, but when it comes in a bottle like this and it's organic, why not just use that? It's a whole lot easier. The next thing we're going to need is some of this celery salt. You could chop up your own celery and throw it in there if you want to, but I just find that this celery salt has a whole lot more flavor. So that's what I use. You're also going to need some chili powder. Now you know I love the dark chili powder in a lot of my recipes for the mild flavor. For this one, you need the full flavored chili powder. And we're going to need some mustard. One nice thing about mustard, at least to this point, I hadn't found anybody trying to cram sugar in it. So you can just use whatever is the cheapest.
Now I'm going to show you how easy this manwich is to put together. First thing you're going to add in is your tomato sauce. Just put it right in the pot. You're going to turn this on about a medium heat. Next, we're going to go in with the ketchup. Then we're going to throw in a tablespoon of that green pepper that we chopped up real fine. Next, it's time for the garlic. Now you can measure this out if you want, but hey, around here, we love to keep the vampires away, so I'm just going to throw in as much as I want. But I found the best taste is about a half teaspoon of it. I'm going to throw in that brown sugar. I'm going to go in with a tablespoon of those dried onion flakes. Now, if you like videos like this and you're not subscribed, hit the little button down there. It lit up for you. Click the bell next to it, and anytime I do a new video, you're going to know about it. And then it's time for the spice blend. The salt, the celery, and the chili powder. It's time for all those to go in, you know, so they can get acquainted with all the rest of the stuff. And then last but certainly not least, we got to put in that yellow mustard. This is going to give it the backbone that it needs for that manwich taste. Oh yeah. So now comes the easy part. We just got to stir it all together and just keep it nice and happy the whole time. Make sure everybody's well acquainted in there. Everybody gets together, tries to love one another. You know what I'm saying. Just stir it up real good, heat it up. We're going to bring it up on a medium heat until it starts to get just a little bit thick. Just give it a little stir every now and then and make sure it's real happy. You know what will be good right here? A little bit of manwich thickening music. Make sure it starts to pop like that just a little bit, and you know you're almost to the right place where you need to be. And now once it starts to thicken up, you don't have to stir it constantly, just make sure you keep it moving every once in a while. And now we're going to put together the manwich. Oh man, brown some ground beef and have a manwich night. And that's what I did. It's that grass-fed beef from Aldi. I'm just going to cook it down to where it's almost all the way cooked. I like a little bit of a medium sometimes, but I'm gonna cook it down. And then all you gotta do is add your sauce to it and you are done. Now this is my absolute favorite way to eat this manwich now, the keto tortilla fold over. And if you haven't seen my other tortilla fold over videos, I'll leave the link up top and in the description so you can check them out. But oh man, this is gonna be good.
Our Tommy is quite a lumberjack.
You're hungry as lumberjacks too, right, Bamps?
Hey, I'll make sandwiches.
Yeah, a sandwich is a sandwich.
But a manwich is more like a meal.
And what's a manwich?
Sloppy joes made with your fresh ground beef plus Hunt's manwich sauce. Thick with tomatoes, onions, peppers. Makes more of a meal.
Oh, Grandpa.
Like I said, a sandwich is a sandwich.
But a manwich is a meal.
Yeah, especially for us hungry lumberjacks.
And last but certainly not least, on my list of comfort foods, and this is probably my number one, we make this quite a bit, and it's definitely comforting. You can pair it with all kind of different sides, or you can just have it by yourself. But this is my meatloaf. Today, I want to show you one of my favorite recipes, which I love meatloaf. Growing up in the South, we have meatloaf all the time. Meatloaf mashed potatoes. And I have found a mashed potato recipe that I'm going to make and show you how to make. I didn't create that recipe, but I just want to show it off. But first, I want to show you how to make this meatloaf. It is phenomenal. So meatloaf is a good way to get a lot of ground beef in your diet. The problem is you need breadcrumbs, which equals carbs. So I've created this one without breadcrumbs, and I think you're really going to like it. So if you like these kind of videos, please subscribe to my channel and give me a thumbs up. And consider sharing the video. If you know anybody that likes keto food, making their own food, even people that aren't on keto are going to love this recipe. What's the old saying? Don't let your meat loaf. Well, your meat's not going to loaf on this. People are going to eat this up. You're going to love it. Not everybody in my family is keto, and everybody loves this recipe. So I hope you'll give it a try. Come on over and we'll get started.
So here are all the ingredients you're going to need for my keto meatloaf. You're going to need avocado oil spray. You're going to need a pound of preferably grass-fed ground beef. And I've got someone in town locally here that I buy it from, but she was not around last week, so I got this from Aldi. Meatloaf mix, which is ground veal, pork, and beef. We'll need 2 cups of my pork panko. And if you have not seen the video, I will link it down below so you know how to make this. You're going to need 2 eggs, and we're going to beat those before we add it in. You're going to need about a cup of onion. And this is the Vidalia onion. You can use that or yellow onion, either way. You're going to need some almond milk. You're going to need my keto ketchup or any keto approved ketchup. This one, I will leave the link to this also because I made the video about how to make your own keto ketchup for a fraction of the cost. So I'll leave that down below too. You're going to need some Worcestershire sauce. You're going to need some garlic powder. And you're going to need some black pepper. And for the topping, we're going to use some of this ketchup. We're going to use a brown sweetener. So I use a combination of this monk fruit golden and the Truvia Sweet Complete brown sugar. And we're going to use some red wine vinegar. So I'm going to measure all this out, and I'll be right back and show you how to put it together. So the first thing I'm going to do is make the sauce to put on top. So what you're going to need here is a 1/4 cup of ketchup. I actually put a little bit more. I like closer to a 1/2 cup, but it makes it a little bit runnier. So for the recipe, I'm going to go with a 1/2 cup. 1/4 cup. Then I'm going to throw in 2 tablespoons, and that was the combination of that monk fruit brown sugar and that Truvia brown sugar. I also use Swerve brown sugar. And we're going to go in with 1 tablespoon of red wine vinegar. And then what I'm going to do is take this flat whisk, just kind of combine it all together. And I'm just going to put that in the fridge to chill for just a little bit. Let all these flavors get together. It'll thicken up just a little bit before we put it on top. Now let's put together the meatloaf. So in my bowl, I have the pound of ground beef and the pound of meatloaf mix. Now to that, I'm going to go ahead and add in my 2 cups of pork panko. I'm going to add in my cup of onion. Oh, got an escapee. Grab this tool. There we go. We're going to add in a cup of almond milk. I'm going to add in 4 tablespoons of ketchup, and it's a little bit over 1/4 cup. So throw that in there. And we're going to add in 2 tablespoons of Worcestershire. And then we're going to add in this spice mix, which is 2 teaspoons of parsley, 1.5 teaspoons of salt, 1 teaspoon of garlic powder, and 1/2 teaspoon of black pepper. So we're going to add this in. And I'll put this recipe down below so you don't have to worry about coming up with or writing down this recipe. I'll put it down there for you. And then we're going to add in 2 eggs that I have beaten. Now the fun part, the mixing. And there's only one way to do this. You got to get in there and mix it. So I'll show you what that looks like. So this is the only way to do it. You got to get in there and you got to mix this. If anybody's got a better way to do it, please let me know. Put a comment down below, but this is the only way I've found to do it. And see, I made a mess already. Gotta pick that up, but you just gotta mix it all together like this. Mix it well. Now you've already got your oven preheated to 350. I think I forgot to tell you that, but I'll put it in the recipe. And then we're going to put it in that meatloaf pan that we have greased with the avocado oil. We're going to put the topping on it. Then we're going to put it in that 350 oven for 55 minutes, uncovered. And I will show you what that looks like in just a minute. So the first thing I'm going to do is spray this pan down with some avocado oil. And you want to make sure you get it really good so it doesn't stick. Make sure it's in all the corners of the pan. I'm just going to take my meatloaf mix, put it out in there. Try to get it all. And then press it down. You get in all the corners and press it down really good so you get a nice solid meatloaf. That's perfect. And then I'm going to pour this sauce right on top. And that's been sitting in the fridge for a little while so the flavors come together really well. It thickened up a little bit. So we'll put that all over the top. Make sure and coat it really good here. Oh, that's looking good. So then we're going to go into the 350 oven for 55 minutes, uncovered. We're going to take it out and I'll show you what it looks like when it's done. And this is what it looks like when it's done. It's going to be so good, I cannot wait to eat it. Hear that sizzle?
Y'all, I hope you've enjoyed spending some time checking out these old videos. Hopefully they weren't too bad and you unsubscribed because of my old quality. I've really tried to make these things better for you. But if you like stuff like this, check out this playlist that I've done with some of my sauces.